Hi, I've been struck by a crazy idea. I know, it happens all the time, but I'm sharing it with you here first. I'm going to create a container hosting system. Sounds easy, right? Well, it sounded really easy, and so I started looking into it. Anyway, this is how far we've got so far. I would like to do a container hosting system, CHAS. Can do it as a minimum viable product, and here's the overview. Okay, so it's kind of Kubernetes but simpler, because Kubernetes is complicated. However, it's quite complicated. Anyways, so what do we need as our minimum viable product? Firstly, we need some nodes. So we've got some nodes. They're going to be running containerd because we're running containers, and we're going to have a node agent. The node agent is responsible for some stuff like talking to containerd mainly. So that's going to be, hey containerd, download this image, start this container, stop this container, tell me about the container, is it healthy, all of that kind of thing. The stuff that we need to do is the interface between CHAS and the containerd. Sweet. So what does CHAS look like? I'm glad you asked. Well, the main guts of that is going to be an API server written in Python Fast API. And I've done that because Python's very popular. Fast API is also quite quick, and it's written in Python, and it can do stuff, what we want it to do. So initially it's going to be very simple. It's going to be allow a node to register with the system. So this will be the node agent can contact the main API and say, hi, I'm a node, I've got this much memory and this much CPUs, and I'm running this version of containerd. What have you got for me? What can I do for you? And the API will then sit there and register that, and it will keep track of that information. You know, I've got this node over here that's ready for work. So what can we do with that? Well, we can then send a deployment request to the API that says, here I've got my service, it's called Neil's Great Service, probably web server, and then it'll need this many CPUs, this much memory, it uses this image, and we don't need a custom command, but it does do everything on port 8080. Can you go host that for me? And so the API will then ask its friend, the scheduler. So we've got a scheduler sitting over here. Now, I don't know if we need this. It might disappear entirely. But right now, we need a piece of code, not necessarily a separate thing, but a piece of code that then says, hey, tell me about all the nodes we've got. Right, we've got some spare CPU there and some spare memory there. And therefore the best place to put this new container is on that node. And then the API can go, right, I've got a deployment. It's asking for a container that's going to be put on that node. Let's go talk to the node agent in order to say, we want you to start this container. Here's all the configuration for it. And then the node agent starts that container and comes back and it says, yes, it's running, the container ID is this, and its port number is this, because we need to know, how to talk to it, right? And so the API will then say, oh, thanks very much for that information. I'm now going to talk to the load balancer to say, hey, you've got a new service. It's called Neil's Amazing Service, or web server. And it's on this node and it's listening on this port. Any traffic you get through for web server, can you send it through to this node on this port? And that's our ingress coming on, right? So we've got our nodes hosting the stuff with containerd and the node agent. We've got the API server, the brains of the operation. The scheduler does a little bit of, hey, where should we put it? We've got the ingress gateway that's going to be listening to Tinterwebs, and if it gets a request, it will then send it to the correct node. And on top of all of this, we might have time to do a client, which is a CLI for the API. So we've got to tell the API about that deployment. We can do it through just a straight up curl command and some JSON. That's probably okay for the MVP, but later on we might want a command line interface to do that. Anyway, so that's the current plan. This is sitting here. We've got some deployment flows, we've got some key features which I've just gone through with you. We are deliberately not doing stuff, so there's no persistent storage, there's no advanced scheduling or auto scaling or auto healing or anything auto. In fact, we just want to make sure that we can prove that we can have a API that then starts containers. In the future, we want to do stuff like node draining, container health checks, a web UI so that we can manage the thing, and all sorts of other health checks and statistics, log handling, those sort of metrics and stuff that we need. But right now, we want to get to a place where I can curl an API with the configuration. It will go tell a node to start the container. It will receive the container ID and the port it's listening on, tell the load balancer that it's there, and so then I can hit the load balancer and it will give me the health check, I suppose, back from that service. Once we've achieved that, that's our minimum viable product, and we can build it out from there. So stay tuned for me on the start of this journey, and the next time you'll see me, we'll be doing some actual programming, and we might even have AI helping us along the way. Depends on how helpful or how dreadful it's going to be. See you on the next one.